I've been asked to talk about building solidarity across working class communities. And I thought I'd just start in relation to the trade union movement where I started really, which was in the late 70s, where actually there was a change in the trade union movement, which was that trade unions realised that they couldn't build solidarity by excluding people. They couldn't push up wages by just trying to limit the labour supply in various industries. And actually that had been partly a consequence, a long time coming, of actually realising that actually after the Second World War there was a bit of a labour shortage and that they needed to, that people needed to be involved or come to Britain to work. Not to say, for those that didn't live through that time, it wasn't hell, there was lots of racism, and it took a while for the trade union movement to catch on. I remember in the late 70s, when I first joined the trade union movement, that there was a lot of organisation done at the margins to include BME people in that movement. Lots of fights to get trade union movement to realise that they needed to represent us as well. And I remember that from the point of view of people on the right, they didn't think trade unions were about us, and people on the left thought we were trying to split working class solidarity when we started going on about black self-organisation. But nevertheless, actually, through organising in our communities, we made the change. We made the change to get trade unions to at least accept that actually they need to represent all their members. And that actually black workers needed to have a voice and had a role to play within that. So I'm bearing in mind I've only got 10 minutes and I hope somebody's keeping a tab on the amount of time I speak. I think it's important to look back to where we were to understand where we are now and where we're going. Because one of there's two things I want to talk very briefly about in terms of where we are now and where we need to get to. One is that the labour market has changed radically since those days, and what we see is casualisation, a tremendous growth of casualisation, especially since 2008, where the governments have used it as a way of both privatising jobs and of making people more insecure. And that has really especially impacted on the BME community. We've seen amongst BME women, for example, an 80% increase in casualisation. This was a group of people in the BME community that used to at one time be the most secure and are now rapidly becoming the most insecure. We've seen over the last 3 decades long-term unemployment against, amongst BME young people, and that doesn't look like changing. But also within that time, we've seen a change in the rhetoric in relation to BME communities. Once again, we're outsiders. Once again, we're migrants. Once again, actually, what we see is a huge rise in racism, both off the back of both the recent decision to leave the European Union and almost like it made it racism acceptable again, and the increasingly virulent rhetoric against migrants. And that leaves us with a challenge, really, because actually it leaves us with a challenge about how we build solidarity across working class communities for the future. Because actually all working class communities are suffering from the iniquities of being turned into a casualised pool of labour that's flexible, that's low paid, that can be exploited at the will of employers. And I think one of the things that we actually have to understand is that actually we need to understand what the commonalities are that face us all. And in doing that, actually what we have to do is change the nature of the game, really. Because I think we got into this sort of managerial thing. We got into this thing where it's about, well, if something happens, then we respond to it. The trade union movement, we take a grievance, or we go to an employment tribunal. I'm not saying those things aren't important, but what they don't do is they don't build solidarity. They make us think that actually every case is unique. They ignore the institutional and structural racism in our society. And they mean that actually we're not setting the agenda, the employers are setting the agenda. And we have to change that. And I recognise in the trade union movement we've got a long way to change that. If we don't change it, others will. I mean, that's why we see the growth of especially in London, of new unions amongst migrant communities, unions like the IWGB and the UVW, who operate in a much more collective way, and that's around action, around taking various forms of action. And one of the advantages of taking various forms of collective action, and I'm not necessarily just talking about strikes here, whether it's doing a petition, whether it's doing a sit-in, whatever it is that actually taking action politicises people, makes them really understand who the enemy is and those things that they have in common. And we have to learn the lessons of that. People in the past learned the lessons from that, and I know some colleagues of mine in the movement see unions like that as a bit of a threat. But I just need to, and this, I'll end on this point, go back once again to history, because actually that's always been the thing that's driven the trade union movement forward. People on the margins organising to get it to change. In the 50s and 60s it was the Indian Workers Association in the Midlands and in London actually organised people into the trade union movement. There was Caribbean Labour Solidarity in London and various other Caribbean organisations that done it were doing exactly the same thing. There were Bangladeshi and Pakistani working men's associations that actually organised people because trade unions weren't at the time. And we need to understand that actually it's only through organising and collectivising, especially around issues like race and immigration, or we as a BME community are going to be able to make a change. Thank you.
I wanted to ask your view about the decline of trade union membership with younger people. As you know, many younger people, like my children for example, people under 20, who really do need trade unions because of the gig economy and other zero-hour contracts and so on. They are not joining trade unions, and you spoke about campaigning. How can this be addressed? Thank you.
It's okay. Is this working? Is it working there? Yeah. I even I can hear it. Yeah, I mean, I think just to say about trade unions and their role generally. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, a trade union is whenever a group of people get together in a workplace and say to the boss, "Well, actually, no, it's not just about institutions." And we have to remember in terms of the BME community that across the world, in terms of the anti-colonial and anti-imperial struggles, organised work has played a central role in that. So we have a history ourselves, both in terms of organising in relation to work and against racism, because that's what part of that imperial struggle, anti-imperialist struggle was. But I think, in relation to young people, there's a huge problem that actually, when I went to work, the first time I went to work, when I came home, my mother said to me, "Have you joined a trade union?" And I hadn't, and she said, "Don't come back tomorrow if you haven't," basically. Because there was that cultural understanding in our community that you needed to combine with other people if you were going to survive. And somehow or other we've got ourselves into the position of, in terms of many in our community, especially young people, believing the rhetoric that it's actually only about what you do to survive. And we've got to change that. Nobody else can change that. We've got to get out there and say to our young people that actually, no, you need each other, right? You need each other, both in the community and in the workplace. You have to work together and you have to take action together to change things, because you actually can't do it on your own. Obviously, in terms of in terms of the trade union movement as it currently is, we've got a huge job of work to do to get that message out to young people and to people more generally. I mean, I think part of the decline in trade unions has partly been to do with the way that the labour market has changed and the way that actually the traditional heavy industries have disappeared, and trade unionism is at the moment sort of the last bastion of it is in the public sector, and that's declining there because actually it's under attack. But I think we've got a job to do to get out there and convince people that they need to get involved, they need to come together, and they need to change, and that they need to make change. And I think there's a golden opportunity at the moment, because actually what happened in the last election with Jeremy Corbyn was people got the idea that another way was possible. That another way was possible collectively, and I think we've got a challenge to take advantage of that and get out there and say to people, we want you can be part of that change by being members of the trade union.
For young people and anybody else who wants to know why they need to join a union, I give them this quote. Unison deserves huge credit for fighting the case to the Supreme Court despite 3 defeats below. It is the perfect illustration of Lord Reed's statement that cases are not of value only to the particular individuals involved, because the judgments will benefit not only Unison's or other unions, members, but workers in general, and in the long term all individuals who face impediments to upholding legal rights. It is a fitting tribute that the case will always be referred to by the name of the union that had the courage to fight the case, and that is why people should join a union. Thank you.